So we were asking about discernment. And so I was feeling into, discernment, how it comes through. And it has a lot to do with our gifts as well, right? So as so if I'm in a situation where I'm sensing that I'm in the presence of someone who isn't in their heart space, because that's one of my gifts, is being able to see the energy. I can tell when someone isn't in their heart resonance, and so where there is interference, and sometimes the interference is within the person, or it could be outside distortion or interference. And so, discernment for me is a fine line with judgment. So I have to check in with myself to see if I'm in judgment of a situation and go into neutrality immediately, bringing myself, into neutrality, into my heart resonance, so I can get a feel for the feel. And so for me, it's a very sensory, it's a sensory experience of being in discernment. And so a combination of, incorporating gifts, coming into neutrality, or just remaining in neutrality. You could have started there, but checking in to make sure I'm not in judgment and I'm in discernment of understanding the situation or just witnessing the situation. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And it's funny, like we're each different. And so it's going to be
Mhm.
different for our audience. And
Yeah.
you'll just get to know it and refine it. And for me, like I clean my aura every day and I look at my traumas. And the more I clear myself, I'm like, oh, that person is not for my highest good. Or I can see stuff in their aura, or they're not being genuine, or they're not being sincere. And so every one of you guys, including us, we're going to be different in how we, you know, have our spidey senses activated, that
Mhm.
someone isn't for our highest and best
Yeah.
good, or we shouldn't be listening to them, or it's all about heart and it's all about love. And don't
Mhm.
kick yourself if you're like, oh, okay, they were
Mhm.
not for my highest and best good, or if they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, because I've had that. I follow people where I'm like, crap, they're not who they say they are, because like to remind you guys, like not everybody walks the walk, you know. So just have your feelers on, you know.
Yeah, because people are in different spaces at all times. They're in their, everyone's in their different space, in a different frequency. And so it just may be that that frequency is not aligning. And that's really part of the discernment, is knowing that your frequencies are not aligning in that moment, right? Because anything can change at any time. And
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, so the frequency isn't aligning now. And even like what you talk about, Lily, about music, you know, I don't align with music I used to listen to at all. If I hear the song, I'm like, whoa, there are things that I recognize now that I never recognized then, that had an impact. And so it's so interesting how, that's part of the discernment also. Um, Having discernment in where we're going. For some people, if they don't know what their gifts are, and they don't know how to incorporate discernment with their gifts, it's really part of just the heart resonance, like what doesn't feel right, not being in judgment over it, but just being in a state of neutrality to say, this isn't right for me right now. Perhaps never
Yeah.
will be. But it's we have the right, we have our sovereign right to make decisions at any given moment, at any given time, and change whatever we want to change. So
Hmm.
that's part of freedom.
Yeah, step back and be neutral about it, because I
Yeah.
remember I freaked out. I'm like, I saw somebody shapeshift, and I'm like, oh my god, they're not who they say they are. I'm like, oh my god, people need to know. I'm like, calm down. It's okay. They're here and they have a purpose. Like, just step back. It's just you're leveling up, you're rising up. So and that's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
I think we've all probably had those experiences too, where we've like, someone comes into your circle for whatever reason, you're interacting with them, whether it's at work or a party or whatever, you're just meeting them. And there's those people that just make you feel good. Like, there's something about them I just love, I just like. And then there's those that you're like, something's kind of, you just kind of, that first impression almost like, sometimes you're just like, something's off about that person. So you kind of have to trust that, or you might feel it in your gut, or you might feel it in your heart. You might feel it in, I don't know, goosebumps or something like that. There's lots of different ways to feel it too, but there's like, just kind of like, I don't know, something about that person or that situation doesn't seem quite right. Like maybe I can't put my finger on it.
And trust that. Trust it.
Mm-hmm.
Trust it. Yes.
Yep. Just like when we trust when something feels amazing. I had an experience. Earlier this year where somebody that I know, we finally got to meet each other, and we were walking around, and all of a sudden, she kind of walked up, and all of a sudden I felt this incredible, like it was like my field and her field totally meshed. It was like this divine goddess love fest. It was just like it was this beautiful energy that began like embodying. It just became one and kind of swirled around us. It was this beautiful energy, and it's like these experiences are so real, and they are so precious and so divinely aligned. And so it's we know when we're aligned with somebody, and we know when an alignment doesn't feel right at that time. And that's just discernment 101.
Practice it. Yeah, practice it with your family.
Yeah.
When somebody's in a bad mood or their aura is dark, can you tell? Can you pick up on that when you don't want to be around that person?
Yes, practice.
Practicing.
Yeah. And doing it in neutrality. That's especially family. That's the challenge, right? Like
that is challenging.
Yeah, that's why family is there for us. And so we learn more about ourselves. We learn more about them. We learn about how being part of family doesn't. That's our first lessons in life. How we are all so different. Like we can learn a lot through our family to be able to navigate out in the world. So that's a great suggestion, Lilia. Like mastering the energies of family. Yeah.
Eckhart was he quoted Ram Dass one time, and he says, "You guys are all love and light, and you're out in nature with trees, and you love a tree." He says, "But spend 2 weeks with your family, and we'll see how enlightened you really are."
Yeah.
So true. It is so true. I find myself triggered all the time when I'm back with certain members of my family. I'm like, I still can't get this right. I'm getting better. Getting better. Sometimes you have to hold your, you kind of have to, like, okay, I'm not gonna fall in line what you want me to fall, the way you want me to fall in line, but I still need to try to be loving about it instead of just.
That's the biggest challenge too, is allowing ourselves to grow and expand. Like for a lot of us, we were the odd people in the family, and when we change, the dynamics change. That's not always looked highly upon. And so you'll have family members that love the path you're on. You're gonna have family members that think you're really freaking weird, and then there are some people who like in my case, it was, how do I say this in neutrality? Being in neutrality. So when you're being controlled, there's no way to sugarcoat that. When someone thrives on controlling you, and and you're finding yourself and you're figuring out your life and you're changing and you're, you know, expanding. And when that change happens, when someone can no longer control you, that can create massive disruption. And then holding our light through the whole thing, that's a challenge.
Yes.
You know, and still loving that person, that's a challenge. And, you know, trying to figure out how to love ourselves while we're still loving that person. And yeah, so it's.
And be gentle with yourself. But
Be
you know,
very
Rome
gentle.
wasn't built in a day. You're not,
Yeah.
you know, you're not gonna love them and embrace them and forgive them all in one day. It's
Yeah.
okay. Take your time. You guys have had like years of trauma built up, and it's gonna take a few years, you know, to unravel that and come to real peace, not forgiveness and peace on a superficial level. Because I hear so many people, oh yeah, I forgive them, you know, and so many times they don't really believe that. You know, it takes layers, and let's get through this, and let's clear my trauma, and then I can work on forgiving you. You know, but I mean, if it starts with just saying it out loud, that's great. That's a great start. You know, but work through it and really get in there and work on that forgiveness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think forgiveness is a process, you know, it's kind of like it doesn't always just happen. You can't always just say, okay, yeah, I forgive them.
Right.
It's a feeling that it has to evolve sometimes, especially if there's a lot there to forgive. Um, and you've been very hurt. But I think, you know, it is a process, and it's okay to take your time with it. You don't have to do it all at once. Maybe you're partly forgiving them, like part of you wants to,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you start there and you just keep expanding that. Okay, I'm going to try a little bit more to forgive. But also I think coming back to, okay, well, what do I think is behind why this person is the way they are? Right? So if you can stop to, again, kind of look at what led up to them being this way, or what led up to them making these
Yeah.
choices.
Bringing an
And
understanding of why they are the way they are.
then you can start to have some compassion.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I think you know, they had some of these experiences in their childhood or in their relationships as an adult or whatever. So they have this inner need to have to control things because there's this great fear if they don't control things that everything will fall apart and it can have dire consequences. So there's that, you know, if you can kind of come to that understanding of, oh, that's where that comes from. Okay, I still don't like it, but okay, they're reacting out of fear. They're reacting out of this. This is where it's coming up. It makes it a little easier to start that, you know, okay, all right, I can see why they're doing that. And when you can see why someone might be doing something, it allows, like I said, that compassion to come in, and then you're like, okay, I can kind of let that go.
Yeah.
Or maybe at least more frequently you're able to let it go, and it doesn't get to you as much as it used to. And then it's just an evolutionary process of, okay, that doesn't bother me as much as it did. Or I don't react like I did before because I know what it is. I know where it came from. And sometimes then maybe our not reacting and responding differently then actually helps them to be like a little more self-reflective about what they're doing. Not getting the response that I used to get from that, or I'm not, maybe I need to think about that a little bit. Or maybe that there's no point in me doing it anymore because not really it's not getting me anywhere with this person, you know? So I feel like that's kind of an interesting way of how it can evolve into where you can like forgive, and just remembering that forgiving is just letting it go, not letting it continue to bother you, not letting it continue to have a hold on you and your thoughts and your energy, not sucking your energy out of you anymore. Like, nope, I'm holding on to that. Okay, that's what you're doing. I see what you're doing right now. I see you. I know underneath that, there's somebody that really cares. I know you care about me.
Yeah.
I know you love me. And for you, you think you're doing what is most loving, even though I don't see it that way. You think you're coming from love. Okay, I get what you're trying, what you're trying to do. And then it's maybe a little easier more palatable to be around them a little bit. But maybe you kind of have to limit it a little bit too. And that's self-love, limiting your time that you spend, okay, I understand what you're doing and who you're being. I understand where it's coming from, but I don't need to be around you that much. So I can still love you, and I can do what I need to do in the doses that I can handle. Like maybe I don't spend an entire week with you. Maybe I only spend a weekend, or a few hours, or, maybe I'm not calling you every day and talking on the phone for 2 hours. I'm calling you once a week and we're talking for 15, 20 minutes, and then I gotta go. It's great talking to you. I gotta go. Have a great day. And having some self-respect and self-love for, okay, this is what I can do. I can still love this person, but I can make sure I'm being taken care of in that process too. And I am not reacting, and I'm not spending so much time that I'm going to get to that point where I blow up.
That's perfect. I love that, because you mentioned a really good point to get to forgiveness is try to, because I know a lot of people struggle with this. They're still like so angry and hurt, and I can't forgive them. But try to understand that these people are also hurt. They were abused as children. They don't know how to speak nicely because no one ever spoke nicely to them. Nobody ever hugged them. I'm finding so many of my clients with very traumatic child. They're seemingly kind, beautiful people, but we go back to childhood, and parents didn't want them, and they weren't hugged, they weren't held, they weren't said, "I love you, you're doing a great job," and they grow up to be functional adults in seemingly normal relationships, but they're still struggling on the inside, and their relationships are struggling. So if you can just understand that these people have their own trauma and they don't know better, then that could help you reach a point of forgiveness, and once you do that and let go, then you can send them compassion. And when you send them the energy of compassion and forgiveness, like into their field, then you've reached a state of God consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Because then if you can love these people who hurt you, bam, you're climbing up those heavenly gates, heavenly stairs. You're knocking things out left and right. Like, good for you. If you can have compassion for those people. Like, something my husband's always struggled with, because I'm like, there's really no such thing as hell, like the Catholic hell, and he's like, what are you talking about? Because he thinks he still has that, construct in him. And I'm like, well, even, murderers and bad people are different on the other side. They're not playing this role. So we have to have compassion for them, you know. And he just, he struggled with that concept for a long time. That you have to love these people who are self-sabotaging and misbehaving and all this other. We have to have compassion. That's what we came to do. That's embracing that God consciousness and forgiveness. So, yeah.
Yeah, the something's coming to mind for me right now with I just had my astrology chart done with someone here, and she was looking at it. I had quite a bit packed into one house, and two of the signs were in the mother category. And what was coming up was, she said, did you release ties with someone, or in the last 6 months? I said, no, it's probably been more than 6 years. She said, well, something's coming up within the last 6 months. And I thought, oh, wow. I really, it hit me that this year has been all about really coming into forgiveness and with this person. And I realized a lot of my forgiveness was happening all along the lines of me coming out of my fear. So as we're moving out of our fear and coming out and shining our light, right? Coming out in our light, to not hide anymore, to not feel guilted, not feel shame, not, working through all of those old patterns and DNA and the lineage and all of that. As I'm coming out of all of this and coming more into myself, I was at the same time forgiving and was embodying that forgiveness. And so I just wanted to mention that because that's a really key part of forgiveness, is coming out of hiding.
Yeah.
Stepping
And
out
don't,
of
and for our listeners, like, don't put us on a pedestal. Like, we all still have our own struggles, and
oh yeah.
you guys are doing the work alongside, us. Like, we're still trying to find our way, So yeah,
Yeah, I think if we
we're all a work in progress.
exactly, and I think if we can kind of keep that in mind, we're all still trying to figure it out. We're all in, we might be in different places, but we're all still evolving, and we will always be evolving. So everyone's where they are based on their experiences that they've had. But I loved what you said, Anya, about as I come out of my own fear. That is so huge. That then I can forgive because there's no fear anymore in that, that person can hurt me anymore, or that, letting go of that and stepping into your power and into your light. And as you raise your consciousness and your awareness, you begin to recognize some of those things. And I know over the course of my life, I have worked through so much fear, and I'm in such a different place right now. And that's part of the process, is releasing the fear through whatever methods and means you've got to do. And it's going to be individual, but I love that. That is huge. I think if you release your fear, then nobody has any hold over you.
No more shackles.
And then there's no need to respond really negatively or angry, or because, okay, whatever. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been one of our biggest culprits. Like, release that fear, release it.
Yeah.
It serves no one. If you find it in your field, say, okay, fear, why are you here? What's your message? What do I have to learn from you? And then just release it.
Being at peace with the pause.
Yeah.
Are you being at peace with the pause?
So this is a good opportunity. I want you guys to share, like, the audience to share, like, what's been some of your biggest fears that have come up, and what do you think it has to teach you? Like, it's really good to self-reflect. We'd be, happy, to read, if with your permission, to, like, read some of those and share with the audience. Or if there's a topic of fear you want us to discuss, we'd be happy to. Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.